Greetings ladies and gentlemen, EQOAnostalgia here to talk to you about Dragon's Crown, a classic style side-scrolling action RPG beat-em-up. Anyone familiar with Golden Axe or Streets of Rage should have a general idea of how this game functions. Now at a glance, Dragon's Crown looks like your typical side-scrolling beat-em-up, but it's really not. It's a lot deeper than that. It does present itself as a classic side-scroller, and it does play that way in many ways. However, once you pull back the layers, you will find that there is a very deep leveling system here. There's a very good combat system in multiple classes, and each class is different enough from each other to give a very good sense of replayability. There is a ton of gear in the game to loot with which to equip your character with. There are many skills and abilities to learn as you level up in the game, and alongside the campaign mode you do have quests that you can partake in on the side. The game does feature single player, local co-op, and online co-op. Now the first thing I want to note here is that the graphics are gorgeous in this game. I really love the art direction they've taken, and while there is some controversy around the way that they portray the female characters, nevertheless it still is a gorgeous game. Now I've always been a fan of Atlas and Vanillaware. They make some really good games. Two games that come off the top of my head are Odin Sphere and Muramasa. Also incredibly fun and very, very beautiful graphics. I was a big fan of Odin Sphere on the PlayStation 2, so when I heard about this, I definitely couldn't wait to play it. Another thing worth mentioning is the sound effects are nice and the music is beautiful. This is one of those games where I found myself kind of whistling the tunes after I was done playing the game. They do get stuck in your head. Now, there isn't really much in the way of voice acting aside from the narrator, which can get a little annoying after a while, but thankfully you can turn that off. Now, the game does have DLC that you can unlock to actually replace the narrator with that of your character. And there are actually 6 characters you can play from in the game, so that can give you a pretty wide variety of narration choices. However, if you have the patience and the money, you can unlock the voiceovers with actual gold in-game. It's pretty pricey. I believe it's 1 million gold for just one character voice. But still, nevertheless, if you play the game a lot and you want to switch up the narration, you do have the option to do that with in-game currency. As far as story is concerned, there really isn't too much of a story here. It's pretty straightforward, and I don't really want to talk about it too much because I want people to be able to experience that themselves. But the star of the game is definitely the combat, so that kind of takes a back seat. Now, as for classes, you do have a fighter, sorceress, elf, wizard, dwarf, and Amazon. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about them because that right there would be an entire video in itself. Now, obviously your fighter is going to be your melee character. He has a decent amount of defense and attack. Your sorceress is going to be kind of like a support character. And obviously she does wield magic and is quite weak to physical attacks. And the wizard is a lot like the sorceress, except he can dish out a little bit more punishment. Now, next up we have the elf, who is essentially the archer class. Again, pretty self-explanatory, really good at range, not so much close up, and very acrobatic. Now, next up we have the Amazon, and she wields a huge ass axe and does some very good damage. Now, she does trade in some defense to be able to put out a little bit more offense, and she's very good at hitting multiple foes at once. She's also very agile and excels at punishing kicks when she is unarmed. And last but certainly not least, we have the dwarf. Now, the coolest thing about the dwarf is he's actually able to pick up foes and throw them around, and he can pick up stones and things like that in the environment and also throw them around. And he is not as fast as either the Amazon or the fighter, but he does have a lot more defensive power. In fact, I do believe he does have the most defensive power out of all the playable characters. There is a lot more to each character that I could go into depth about, but like I said, that would take quite a while. Now, the enemies in the game are all very well animated. There are quite a few of them. They can get a little bit repetitive at times, but I don't really notice it that much because the game is very fun. I do like the bosses in the game. They are unique and they're challenging, and they each have different strategies. Some of them are a little bit more straightforward, while others you do have to pay attention to what you're doing. There are hard ways to dispatch of them, and there are easy ways. Now, not all bosses are like that, but some of them are. Now, the way the levels are designed, it's a little straightforward. I think they could have a little bit more variation in the levels, but for some reason it's just something I don't really mind. If it was another game, I could see it being a problem, but the star of the game is definitely the combat. I mean, you just want to level up, you want to get the new skills, and you want to continue kicking ass, so it really doesn't matter if the layout is a little repetitive. Now, when you first start off in the game, you can't go online. I'd say for about 2 or 3 hours you're left to your own devices to just kind of learn the game. However, they do give you characters to play alongside in the form of NPCs, and one of the things that's unique about that are these bones that you can pick up off of the ground, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Now, the NPCs that you play alongside, they have a pretty good AI system. They do their job and they do support you. I have absolutely no complaints when it comes to the AI in the game. It functions perfectly well. And you can actually turn them off if you don't want anybody coming with you. Say if you just want a little bit more challenge and you want to go out lone wolf style, you can do that. Or you can just select to take one or two of them with you instead of having a full party, because it can get a little crowded on the screen at times. That's pretty much the only complaint I have about Dragon's Crown, is that if you're not really used to it, it's kind of hard to find your character, but after a while you do adjust. Now, once you're able to go online, you have to collect these talismans in order to defeat the main boss in the game. And that's where the game really starts to pick up, because that's when you can start taking multiple different paths on each level. Every level offers 2 different paths with 2 different bosses at the end. So that right there does offer a bit more replayability, and the first path you can choose is usually easier, the second path is the harder choice. For example, option A usually leads to a boss that's a lower level, while option B leads to a higher level boss. And I could be mistaken, but I believe the path that leads along to the boss is filled with enemies that are either weaker or stronger depending on your choice. So the bones that I mentioned earlier can be picked up and resurrected as party members to fight alongside you. And it's pretty unique because some of the times you pick it up, they're actually other player characters that you meet throughout the game. So you're not just picking up random bones that the computer generated, you're actually picking up somebody's character build. You can also choose to just bury the bones and you get the chance at getting a random item when you do so. And another cool thing about the bones is the sorceress can actually turn them into allies, essentially making her into a necromancer of sorts. And so far the sorceress is definitely my favorite character class. I play her non-stop. Now before I'm done with the game, I do plan on trying all of the character classes, and yeah, there's just a lot of replay value there. So yeah, I can't stress that enough. The game has a lot of replayability. Now the game does start off in normal mode, and there is a level cap of level 35, so you cannot progress until you beat the boss at the end of the game, and upon beating that boss you unlock the next level cap, which goes up to level 65 and initiates hard mode. And then after that you unlock Inferno mode, where you can go up to level 99. Now each difficulty does require you to go back and fight the boss again, and it does get pretty difficult to defeat that main boss. Now the game does feature a new dungeon called the Labyrinth of Chaos, with which you can unlock a new level cap. Now after you go through the different layers of the Labyrinth of Chaos, there are 9 of them in total, you do have the option to unlock the level cap up to 255. So after you beat the Labyrinth of Chaos, you will unlock the ultimate difficulty level, and yes, 156 levels. That is a lot of leveling. So yes, like I said, it does look like a classic style beat 'em up, but it is much deeper than that. Now, I have to say, I really love this game. I was always a fan of Golden Axe and Streets of Rage and the side-scrolling games, and when you add a deep, in-depth combat system and a very deep leveling system, it's just a lot of fun. And, you know, one of the coolest things about games like this is the loot, and you do get a lot of loot in Dragon's Crown. Now, after each adventure, you can choose to return to town, but if you continue on, you actually get a multiplier towards your gold and your leveling experience. Also, I believe as you go along, you do get a chance for more rare loot, so the multipliers definitely go up, so you want to try to stay out there as long as you can. But it's not without a sense of challenge, because if you bring consumables with you, they will be getting used, and there is no way to replenish them. And not only that, your items do degrade over time. Also, some of the spells that the sorceress brings, and I think the wizard as well, do only have so many charges to them without you returning to town. You only have a set amount of lives before you have to pay gold to continue, and those do deplete as well. However, you do have a bit of a salvation in being able to carry multiple bags with different gear in them to give you a little bit more longevity. Another thing worth mentioning, it's kind of a minor thing, but there are these little runes that you can cast as you go through the levels. And you can actually buy more rune stones back in town to combine with the existing runes that are already out in the field, and they just kind of give you buffs. And there are, of course, secret rooms to discover, and a lot of those are tied into the side quests. I should also mention, when you do complete side quests, you unlock some really cool art. So that's cool, it's really cool to look at that art, and there's also a small story to go along with each art piece. So there's just one more thing I wanted to mention, but I thought it was neat that they put this in the game. As you're out in the field, say you're like 3 or 4 missions in a row, something like that, you actually get to cook and go to sleep. So they're kind of like little buffs that you get, and you can combine different types of ingredients and feed your party with them. It's kind of reminiscent of Golden Axe, where you would get to the end of a stage and you had to pick up meat and spell books and stuff like that to replenish your magic. It's really cool. I really like that. and after a long battle, nothing refreshes you like some stir-fried bat. So that's about all I have to say about Dragon's Crown. It is a very enjoyable game, and I highly recommend you pick it up. The game is for PlayStation 3 and Vita. I probably should have mentioned that earlier, but I just remembered. Now, I don't often like to do like reviews like in a classic sense. I don't like to give scores to games. I'm just not that kind of gamer. I just like to say what I like and what I dislike. And to be quite frank, there aren't a lot of things that I dislike at all about Dragon's Crown. Like I said, the only thing that kind of sucks is you can lose track of your character. Other than that, this is a great game. And if you like classic style side-scrolling beat-em-ups, you're going to like it. If you like RPGs, you're going to like it. So that is it for this video, folks, and if you are new to my channel, I'd ask that you please subscribe. I thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in my next video.